Hmm? Ah! This is the Good Omens podcast on TV Podcast Industries in association with Podcastica. And we're looking at Season 2, Chapter 4, The Hitchhiker, featuring the minisode Nazi Zombie Flesh Eaters.
Unbelievable.
Having a rough one?
Hey, no, it's perfect. I spent all morning processing 52 men called Otto.
You know, if you really want to get out of here, I believe they're looking to move some people from admissions to temptations.
Well, it's never come easy to me, climbing the greasy pole. Get all double tongue-tied.
Thing is, I do have the ear of the higher demons. Could always put in a word for you.
Really?
If you were to hear something on the Hellvine, some demon somewhere up to some good, just let me know. I could get you in front of the Dark Council.
You do that for me?
Then someday, and that day may never come, I could call on you to do a service for me.
Yeah, well.
Welcome back, fellow acolytes, to the Good Omens podcast on TV Podcast Industries. We're in association with Podcastica, and we are covering Season 2, Chapter 4, The Hitchhiker, featuring Nazi Zombie Flesh Eaters, of course. Yes. Lovely stuff. I am one of your banana, fish, gorilla, shoelace with a dash of nutmeg, John. And I'm joined, of course, by my own ineffable fiancé, Derek.
Hello again.
Banana, fish, gorilla, shoelace with a dash of nutmeg.
I like that. That little gag in there in the episode, which I'm sure we'll talk about. Yes. That was very good. Yes, we have some Nazi zombie flesh eaters, which ties in really well with Podcastica, since their main podcast has been about The Walking Dead for many, many years. So this time we've got some zombie flesh eaters in London.
Yes. Always like a good zombie Nazi, to be honest.
Absolutely.
Whether they're on the moon, at some secret research base somewhere deep in Europe, you name it, they are always good for their money's worth.
Yes, they are. There's actually been a lot of movies now that you say it. There's about three or four different movies all about that. I think it's probably you have your villain character as a zombie, and then add Nazi on top of it. It makes it even more evil, doesn't it?
Yes, it is that kind of evil army of the dead.
Yes, yeah, absolutely.
For sure. But yeah, absolutely loved the Nazi zombies there in London. And of course, great to see Mark Gatiss and Steve Pemberton in there with Rhys Shearsmith. You know, I think for us, this is a bit of a crossover episode almost with The League of Gentlemen as well as Inside Number 9 and all the stuff that these three have done together in various forms throughout their careers.
Absolutely.
So absolutely fantastic to see.
Yeah, it's really great to have these together. Like, I think we've probably mentioned League of Gentlemen a bit. We've definitely mentioned Inside Number 9 as one of our best shows every year that we don't cover. So we are big fans of all these actors and having them on board here on Good Omens again, because they all featured in season 1. So having them all on board here in season 2 is really good fun. So we'll obviously go into full spoiler-filled detail of our discussion about them.
Indeed, we will. But before we do, remember, fellow acolytes, if you haven't yet subscribed, you can head on over to tvpodcastindustries.com, where you can choose any demonic or angelic podcast catcher of your choice. Of course, we'd love to hear your thoughts, theories, ideas about all things Good Omens. So you can send in any feedback for our feedback section to feedback@tvpodcastindustries.com. We are also over on Facebook with our Facebook group, and the spoiler posts that we put up there for each and every episode of Good Omens. Just head on over to facebook.com/groups/TV podcast industries.
Absolutely. And of course, you can find us over on podcastica.com along with all the other podcasts from Podcastica.
Indeed. But without further ado, let us get into our spoiler-filled discussion of Chapter 4 of Good Omens. Derek, what are some of the episode details here?
Well, the show is written, of course, for television by Neil Gaiman and John Finneman. The minisode in this episode was written by Jeremy Dyson and Andy Nyman. Now, the minisode here is about 90% of the episode itself, so they kind of got the writing credit for most of the episode. Jeremy Dyson was the other member of the League of Gentlemen. He was writing on every episode of that show. So we mentioned the three main actors that played every role, basically, in the League of Gentlemen, almost every role. But Jeremy Dyson was behind the scenes. And an interesting factoid was in their movie, the League of Gentlemen Apocalypse, Jeremy Dyson made an on-screen appearance, but not played by Jeremy Dyson, played by Michael Sheen.
Excellent stuff.
There's an interesting one for you,
isn't it? Yeah. The threads that are woven.
Absolutely.
Yeah, good stuff.
Yeah. And Mark Gatiss will be known by a lot of people for his writing on Sherlock as well. So he's heavily involved there. Starring in Sherlock, and he's been in Doctor Who. Neil Gaiman wrote for Doctor Who. David Tennant starred in Doctor Who. So I think actually all three members of the League of Gentlemen have appeared in Doctor Who at some point as well. So, but nice to see them all here and on screen together for the first time in a while too.
Yeah. Definitely.
Good stuff. The other writer, Andy Nyman, for the episode, Andy Nyman was a writer and actor, but mostly known for his writing partnership with illusionist Darren Brown. He wrote all of the specials that Darren Brown did, all his massive event specials that Darren Brown did. You know, the ones like he's like Catching Bullet and teaching people how to rob banks and that.
And the zombie one.
And he did a zombie one as well, didn't he? Oh, very good, very good.
In hospital.
Yeah, I'll have to check that one and see if he was the writer on that.
Maybe he wasn't,
I can't remember whether, but he did do most of the specials, so probably he was a writer on that too. But yeah, an interesting group of people behind the scenes here. And of course, directed once again by Douglas McKinnon.
Good stuff.
So John, do you want to tell us what they gave us with your synopsis for Good Omens Season 2, Chapter 4, The Hitchhiker, featuring the minisode Nazi Zombie Flesh Eaters?
Sure.
I wanted to make sure I got to say Nazi zombie flesh eaters.
The demon Shax hitches a lift with Aziraphale as he drives Crowley's Bentley back from Edinburgh and deduces that Gabriel is hiding in the bookshop. Meanwhile, returning to 1941, 3 Nazi agents go to hell after they are killed by a falling bomb and plenty of demonic intervention by Crowley. Standing in line to go straight to hell, the 3 Nazis, Mr. Glozier, Mr. Harmony and Greta Kleinsman mention to their processor, the demon Furfur, that they are there only because of Crowley and Aziraphale. Furfur offers to spare them eternal damnation and resurrect them as flesh-eating Nazi zombies if they spy for him. Furfur hopes to advance his rank in hell by proving the demon and angel are consorting together. As Aziraphale joins Crowley in blitz-damaged London to deliver his bootleg booze to the West End, Aziraphale offers to perform magic on the West End Theatre to help the owner of this loss-making theatre. Aziraphale begins to prepare his show with the help of Crowley, who suggests something with more of a bang, leading them to invest in a potentially lethal bullet trick that he'll perform on stage with the help of Crowley, and plenty of miracles if it all goes wrong. All the while, the two are being followed by the nibbling Nazi zombies. At the theatre, Mr. Glozier calls Furfur to the show to get his evidence, and who places a miracle blocker over the theatre. With the ante upped, the trick is a huge success, but Furfur takes a photo of the pairs cavorting and cooperation and tells them both they're doomed. As their reward, the Nazis will live out their days as zombies roaming the earth. Furfur goes to present the proof to the Dark Council, not knowing Aziraphale's sleight of hand as he switches the photo with a West End poster, and the council dismiss poor Furfur, laughing and taunting him at his failure. Back in the present, Shax, with the permission of Beelzebub, plans to storm the bookshop with the very best of the demonic army at her disposal and take Gabriel by force. Meanwhile, Aziraphale has plans of his own to pull out all the stops to get Nina and Maggie together at the Wickbur Street Traders and Shopkeepers Association monthly meeting. It'll be a night to remember.
Yes, it will.
Certainly will.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, looking forward
And
to that.
interestingly, with that, it really got the sense then from that final little comment from Aziraphale, certainly in the context of Shax about to storm the bookshop with the demonic army, that we probably won't get minisodes anymore. And as it would happen, the names of the next couple or the two final episodes don't have a minisode featurette.
That's right. So yeah, we may just have everything set in the present time in the final battle and find out what is going on with Gabriel, I guess.
I think so.
Yeah.
But let's return to the Hitchhiker and go into our top signs of the apocalypse.
Yes, let's start right there with the Hitchhiker. As Aziraphale is driving back very late at night from Edinburgh, and we have a pretty classic horror movie setup here, as he sees a hitchhiker on the side of the road, and he can't pick her up because he's in such a rush to get back. He's running really late, but she keeps reappearing further down the road and keeps appearing in front of him when she eventually gets into the car. We discover that that's Shax, who Aziraphale hasn't met, which I didn't realise. I kind of assumed they'd met at some point, but he's never met Shax. Aziraphale only works with Crowley, of course, behind the scenes, pretending that they're not working together. So it makes lots of sense that he wouldn't have met another demon, of course.
Yeah, no, I really like this sort of meeting of Aziraphale and Shax. Miranda Richardson's so good here, and so is Michael Sheen. It's just, why would Crowley risk destruction for you, And she's really tricksy and demonic in that way, as she tricks Aziraphale into sort of revealing, not exactly that they're in the bookshop, but just like his response of, how did you know? What did I do to reveal that Gabriel is in the bookshop? How did I lead you to that conclusion? Because she basically just takes that punt, really, to really trick him into sort of giving the game away that actually he knows of Gabriel and his whereabouts.
Well, yeah, there is a weird line where he says, "Who's this Angel Gabriel? I have no idea who that is."
Exactly.
Angel Gabriel is the Archangel Gabriel. Everybody knows who Gabriel is.
Well, I think it's Aziraphale's
going too far with trying to lie.
Exactly. His poor attempt at kind of covering things up. And it reflects Muriel from the last episode as the white police constable officer inspector.
Yes.
So, and like you say, any episode with Nazi flesh eater zombies in the title, then the dark country lane with the fog, it's that classic horror trope setup, which was nicely done here as well.
Yes, this time the Hitchhiker. But it is interesting, and it does kind of lead Shax on her path now for what her new mission is, to get Crowley and get Gabriel, right? So this meeting is really important, and obviously hence why the title of the episode is The Hitchhiker, because that's basically the only thing that happens in present day.
And it kind of bookends the episode,
exactly,
like the last few have done, with back in the present, with Shax getting permission from Beelzebub. I do like that exchange as well, because she gives her intel to Beelzebub, and she's basically requesting, to take legions of hell's finest demons to lead this attack on the bookshop because of the slip up from Aziraphale about Gabriel. Yeah. And I like how Beelzebub kind of turns that back on her to say, no, I command you to do it. This may be your plan, but you're not getting the credit for it. If it goes well, that's...
I got you, yeah.
I kind of just like that little subtle moment in that exchange between the two.
Yeah.
And of course, this fairly foreboding, all-out strike on Aziraphale's bookshop by these hordes of demonic soldiers to Aziraphale and Crowley back in London being all a bit whimsical, really. Kind of, first of all, Aziraphale makes no mention of Shax.
That's right.
And neither does Crowley, even though they've both had encounters with her and been threatened by her.
Yeah.
And then, the Big Bang, the night to remember will be at probably one of the most boring sort of shopkeeper association meetings.
Yeah.
But for Aziraphale, this is just the most exciting thing because there's going to be, naughtiness there by him because he's trying to get Nina and Maggie together. And I love that kind of, that the naivety, the innocence element here, the whimsical nature with sort of this, so you can imagine the double bass strings of foreboding going on in the background because Shax is preparing her attack.
Absolutely. It'll be really interesting to see how that all plays out, won't it? I probably didn't realize how ambitious Shax was going to be when we met her first at the start of the season, but it makes lots of sense. She's the person taking over from Crowley. And her only complaint about it is, this job is really easy. I don't actually get to do anything. Yeah. I don't get to affect anything because the humans do much worse things than I do. And Crowley had the same complaint, and then he formed a relationship with Aziraphale. And, as we say, the two of them kind of been working for heaven and hell, but kind of for themselves.
Yeah, and we see her ambition stretching back to 1941 as well with Furfur, where it's like, you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours, in terms of helping one another move up the corporate ladder of hell,
Absolutely.
I guess.
Yeah, but even in this discussion with Beelzebub, she's kind of saying to her, do you have a plan now to get them back? And Shax goes, because I do. I have a plan. I know what I want to do here, and I'm bringing it to you, basically. Yeah. So that feels much more ambitious than we've seen her. So that was good. A good little development there from Shax. But of course, if you're going to be Hell's representative on Earth replacing Crowley, you have to be a demon of some repute, I would say.
Yes. But shall we move on to our second sign of the apocalypse? Yes, it is Nazis in London, but not any old Nazis in London. Nazi zombie flesh eaters in London.
Well,
in fact, we have both. I really like this callback to season 1, episode 3, where you have the Nazis trying to get all of these sort of religious prophetic texts from Aziraphale, and Aziraphale thinks that, as it happens, Greta Kleinsman, he thinks is MI5, where in effect she is Nazi Secret Service, and so it all turns nasty at gunpoint, and ultimately it's Crowley who comes in to with a big demonic intervention to have the Nazis' own sort of munitions being dropped on the church, and he protects himself and Crowley and the books, but Mr. Harmony, Mr. Glozier and Greta are all taken out by this, and then we come to the moment where you have all them, along with a lot of other Nazis actually at the time, being processed by Shax and Furfur, sort of on the first step to hell.
Exactly. I really do like that they took moments from season 1, episode 3 and kind of blended them with these new moments. Definitely. Where we have Glozier's eyes opening behind them, and we see them all crushed underneath the remains of the church as well. So I like that they did that. They blended it in so you could literally watch season 1, episode 3's flashback and attach this one, and you could continue the story on as to what happens directly afterwards. It's an interesting one, isn't it? Because obviously these tales give you more information about what's happening with Aziraphale and Crowley, but it's not them telling the stories from their perspective. You would think that lots of Nazis who turned into zombies would be a more important story than Nazis that wanted to steal prophetic books from England for Hitler, So, but that's not the reason why the story was told last season. This season, the reason why this story is being told is that it's another, impact on Aziraphale. Once again, this is another twist in Aziraphale's allegiance to heaven and his change from someone who always tells the truth and always follows along with God's plan.
Absolutely.
It's another twist in Aziraphale as a character. And why we get this flashback.
We mentioned that last week for the previous episodes. These minisodes are really are exploring Aziraphale's change here.
Exactly.
On the line of doing God's work, but also doing stuff for myself.
Yeah.
And that includes being able to drink tea, at least alcoholic drinks as strong as sherry.
Yes.
So I thought, I like these minisodes because I'm assuming that will play into these final 2 episodes ultimately.
Because we've seen him being able to lie, which an angel shouldn't technically be able to do. He's not great at it, as we saw in the car with Shax, but he can.
Yeah, and he's better than Muriel as well.
He is, yes,
for sure.
At times.
But yeah, I think though, having these 3 Nazis, I just really enjoyed all of this in London with the 3 of them. I absolutely loved it.
Yeah, but when it moves to hell, and that's kind of the next sign of the apocalypse, when it moves to hell and Furfur kind of reveals his plan, or is given his plan by Shax in some way. Shax is looking for some evidence that an angel and a demon have worked together so that she can further her path in hell, and says the same thing to Furfur. If you find some of that information, I'll make sure that you stand up front and you can get moved up and get out of the processing side and maybe move into the temptation side, which is the exciting part for a demon, right?
Yeah, exactly. This was really good. As I say, just the whole thing of these 3 Germans being processed down at the gates of hell, really, or the chutes of hell. And, they ultimately over here talk about Crowley, and they tell Furfur about Crowley's demonic intervention, but on hallowed ground, that he was in a church. And
exactly.
If I remember from season 1, I love the fact that all the way through that scene, Crowley is dancing and prancing around on the ground because he says it's like walking on fire.
Exactly.
And it's really funny because he's doing his usual Crowley stuff, but all the time kind of just lifting his feet off the ground and sort of quick stepping almost in order to keep his feet off the ground. So, and this means they then get this offer from Furfur that they can be reconstituted as zombies, or they can end up like Commandant Gluck, who who is basically being eaten and digested by a spider for all eternity.
Continuously eaten, regurgitated, eaten again, regurgitated, eaten again. Yeah.
It's so funny. And it's just like, they immediately sign, because they had shown a video, the corporate video of what will happen to you if you don't take our offer to become a Nazi.
Exactly. And I also love that Furfur kind of throws in after they've made the agreement that you will have a thirst for brains and to eat other humans around you. You will need to satisfy that thirst. You will need to kill and eat.
Well, that's it. And actually, and as soon as they're back on Earth as zombies, I really like their movements as zombies here because it didn't make them stand out. You knew they were zombies, but it wasn't to the extent where, through busy London in the middle of the Blitz, with whether it's pandemonium happening or just the buzz of the city, they can't, and the darkness, because obviously you have the blackout. They can be inconspicuous in London. So it's a great kind of gag there.
Yes, but you know what I noticed the second time I watched it?
Go on.
They get worse. Their movements get worse and worse throughout the episode.
Yes,
so they start off, obviously, having just been returned to life. Their bodies are working fine. But as the episode goes on, you do see them struggling and jerking as they're walking.
For sure. And
but that first victim, I thought this was a really good comedy moment, as we have the unnamed drunk man singing the song about the farting competition. And then I thought it was really well filmed in shadow as they attack him, and you see the blood spurting up in the air as the 3 of them meet him.
And the top of it, they're kind of like, they're kind of pouring at his head as well.
Exactly.
In order to get the brains. Because it is quite specific. Furfur does say your sustenance is from brains.
Exactly.
Even though they say flesh eating.
Yes, but just like any good zombie, of course it comes from the brains. But then we have Mr. Glozier as they all relax afterwards, satisfied with their meal. Mr. Glozier continues the song about the farting competition, because the person they killed is repeating on him.
Yeah, exactly.
Great little gag there.
And as well, just the whole gag of, I think you have Greta saying, well, it's almost chickeny as they're kind of picking the brain out from between their teeth, and Glozier saying, yes, kind of like chopped liver and all this kind of stuff. So, and then from there they go to follow Crowley and Aziraphale in order to then be able to turn the ring that Furfur has given to Mr. Glozier so that he can come in order to take the picture. And I do... it does lead to literally, I think, one of my favourite moments of TV this year, which is them in the magic shop.
All right, we'll definitely talk about that in one of our next points, probably.
Yeah, well, I think we should move to the fourth sign of the apocalypse, which is the magic trick, the magic show.
Yeah, we have Crowley here going to deliver booze to a more adult theatre, I guess, for members of the armed forces who are on their nights off, I guess, is what it's for. Mostly the show consists of dancing girls, who are there to entertain the troops, but occasionally they have to have a rest. And during that rest, it's usually a magician that entertains the audience. But we find that on the way there, Crowley has, unfortunately smashed all the bottles of booze. So now he's indebted to the owner of the theatre. So, to help him out, Aziraphale kind of happily, wants to replace the magician because he's a very excited amateur magician himself. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
As we saw in season 1, when he was at the birthday party and pretended to be the magician.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I loved this. I loved Aziraphale going back to the bookshop to practice. And it's just the look on Crowley's face. I mean, he's just so not impressed, and he's like, it has to be a bit bigger for the audience.
Isn't it close magic?
Yes, it's kind of, Aziraphale's kind of doing up close magic like you would at a birthday party. Yes. This needs to be magic fit for a stage in the West End, and this is where as well we have the three Nazis watching on and trying to lip read what they're saying, and you get the banana, fish, gorilla, shoelace with a dash of nutmeg gag, of which they all think that this is all just gibberish.
Yes.
That Mr. Harmony is not lip reading very well at all.
Absolutely.
And they continue to follow them about, and it does lead to one of my favorite pieces of TV this year, which is Aziraphale and Crowley in the magic shop, looking to see what big trick Aziraphale can do with Mr. Glozier, played by Steve Pemberton, just being on fine form as he kind of stumbles into the shop trying to listen into what they're saying. And as the conversation progresses, he gets the detective's hat on, and then he's got the fake nose and specs and moustache.
Yeah.
And then he's, by the end of it, knowing that they're going to perform the bullet trick, which requires Crowley to be placed in the audience to help Aziraphale do the trick. He goes to turn the ring to summon Furfur, but has swapped out the ring with a joke one that spurts ink into his face. So I have to say, for me, this was priceless. It
was great fun.
I absolutely loved it. And I just,
Steve
Pemberton's face.
He's great.
He just looked like clueless.
Yeah.
Like the expression of just dumbness on the as a zombie on his face was priceless to me.
Good.
I really enjoyed this.
Yeah, at moments here, this feels like some of the comedy episodes of Inside Number 9. You know, they've done, what is it, 9 seasons of Inside Number 9, about 6 episodes each season. So we've seen Steve Pemberton particularly and Reece Shearsmith play so many different characters over those many episodes, because they're different every time. So seeing Steve Pemberton play this role here for Good Omens was really good. It was it's one that harkens back to a lot more of his comedy roles.
Definitely,
he does really, really well.
It's really good. And I mean, this then, the magic trick, it is this bullet catcher trick. But the reason for Glozier turning the ring is because it needs to be someone you can trust to be the marksman.
Yeah. So they have to be working together.
They have to be working together as Aziraphale asks for Crowley to be the marksman. Again, Crowley being fairly non-committal about whether he is a good marksman.
And in fact, we learn that he's never actually shot a gun at all.
Exactly.
So this will be his first time shooting. One other thing I noticed in this episode here, following on from last week's episode, did you notice that Crowley is consistently pushing Aziraphale to pay more for things than he's supposed to be paying for? So last episode we saw him effectively give, what was it,
90 guineas,
so about £8,000 to the body
Elspeth,
snatcher, Elspeth the body snatcher, and this episode he pays £27 basically for the shopkeeper to shut up and just give him the trick that he absolutely shouldn't be doing, but that's all with the encouragement of Crowley. Give him more, what else have you got in your pocket? He takes the money out of his wallet and hands it over to the shopkeeper.
Exactly.
So, I wonder why that is. Why does he take a particular pleasure in making Aziraphale pay more? He seems to empty out his pockets quite often, like it's everything.
He's redistributing the wealth, as we learned from the last episode.
Is it because he has a business? Is that what it is? That he's got some way of actually making money, even though he never sells any books?
I think it's because money is ultimately unimportant to angels and demons. So he's like, why are you hoarding it?
Well, maybe
something like that.
Yeah.
But this is just really, the magic shop. For me, this is kind of the center of this episode because it's the reason why Furfur can be called. It exposes Crowley and Aziraphale as being allied, at least. And it has just these wonderful performances from the three Nazis as well, sort of trying to listen in. And of course, it leads to the second nibble of the night, as the shop owner is, again, eaten for his brains.
Yes, and for
his
the
knowledge.
booklet. Eat his brains and take his knowledge, exactly. Yes.
And the booklet as well. Yes. Which they show to Furfur when they call him in the theatre as they watch on.
Yeah. So we do have the big magic trick. We have Aziraphale on stage trying to do this bullet catching trick. So the plan is that he hides the bullet inside his mouth and Crowley shoots the gun, but shoots us past his ear, is the plan. But again, we learn that Crowley's never shot a gun before, so that's not a great plan. What if he misses? What if it goes through Aziraphale's head? Because they do say they would have to do quite a big miracle if he misses. So,
I like this, just like, the magic tricks, the ante is always being upped, isn't it?
Yeah.
And in and of this moment, it's upped considerably because Aziraphale learns that he hasn't ever shot a gun before.
Yeah.
They realize soon enough that they're not able to cast their miracles or their protection enchantments.
Yeah.
Because Furfur has done the miracle blocker, which he's... I love the fact that it's like one of the sort of coffee loyalty cards that you stamp. And so the ante is up here, and it's just so good because Michael Sheen plays this magician on stage trying to be both full of bravado and stumbling over everything.
Yes.
So well. I mean, even in the magic shop where he's got the magic rings and they're just flying all over the place.
Yeah.
Whilst he's kind of delivering, with gusto, the words of a magician that would indicate he's doing it perfectly, and he's just like chucking them all over the place. I just thought it was sublime. Michael Sheen on stage here. It was really good.
Yeah, really good. And again, as we said, a good callback to him as a magician in season 1. But because of the magic blocker, Furfur now knows that Crowley and Aziraphale are working together and goes backstage to confront them. With the photograph of the two of them working together side by side, the person that is most trusted to you as your helper, as you mentioned earlier on.
The infernal code has been broken by Crowley.
Exactly. But once again, as we said, Aziraphale does something that angels probably shouldn't do. He uses a bit of sleight of hand to swap out the photograph for a poster for the dancing girls in the West End Theatre, and sends Furfur back down to hell with this instead of the photograph. So we did say it last week that this is the development of Aziraphale making choices that probably Angel shouldn't make, and this is another one here that he probably shouldn't have done.
I also like Furfur,
working with demons. Also is frowned upon.
Exactly.
Anyway.
But I liked Furfur here coming in sort of, oh, do you remember me? You know, he knows Crowley, and Crowley's like, no, not really. And again, you know, how Tennant delivers this sort of so off the cuff, so nonchalantly, you know, and in the end, you see Furfur as, you know, you doing what you like while we who graft don't get a sniff at promotion. You know, real kind of, you know, resentment here for Crowley, and this is his, you know, defining moment as he'll get his chance to be in front of the Dark Council, to show that the Infernal Code has been broken. You know, they will send a legion to come down for Crowley in the morning, and you know he will get his promotion. Yeah, and it doesn't play out like that.
But if Furfur's telling the truth here about his part in the battle against heaven from the demons during the fall, effectively, he's saying he fought side by side with Crowley. So technically both equals, I suppose, when they arrived in hell. So, and here we are with Crowley being the representative of demons, of hell on earth, and Furfur working in processing. So you can kind of see why he'd be really annoyed. And again, I do love how, Reece Shearsmith plays this role. I think he plays that kind of pitiful, angry person very well.
He does really well.
Kind of role of, the frustration of just, listen to me. Why don't you understand why my life is so much worse than yours? It's a real kind of great role that he plays very often. So I really enjoyed that. But that plan has failed now, as he shares it with the council, and they all laugh at him when he hasn't got the evidence that he said he had.
Exactly. And Shax actually delights in that failure of Furfur, because she's the one that's brought him to the Dark Council, given this moment, this opportunity, and he hasn't taken it. But she knows now she has one in the bag to call upon if she ever needs a favour. Yeah, that's true. And I presume this is where she knows that the two of them are working together. So when Shax comes to take over the role of Crowley, this is what sets her on the path of... and she mentions that to Aziraphale in the car right at the start, where she says, there was a rumour going around in the 1940s that you and Crowley were an item.
Yes.
You know?
And Furfur thought it was his way out of the doldrums. So she kind of recaps the whole story. It's kind of almost from her perspective, this whole minisode. And that's it. That's the majority of the episode, really. There's just one last thing to mention, which is the setup for the next one. We kind of mentioned it already earlier on, but the setup for the rest of the season now, we have this oncoming onslaught on the bookshop. And we have the other more simple story almost, which is Aziraphale has returned to London. Crowley tells him that his plan with the awning of rainwater didn't work as he hoped. So Aziraphale has his own plan to get Nina and Maggie together, which he has to do to prove to heaven that the miracle that they made to stop Gabriel from being seen was actually a miracle to get Nina and Maggie together.
Yes.
So he has to deal with that lie now, but before the end of the season. So I guess that's where we're going next week, is to the monthly meeting.
We certainly are. The Wickburst Street Traders and Shopkeepers Association monthly meeting. What a riot!
I'm sure it's going to be incredibly fun. Yes.
I can't wait for that. It will just be pure mundane British bureaucracy. I can see this being written really, really well.
Let's hope so.
Sort of, you know, it's kind of like the parish council kind of level of being all minuted, all very proper, you know, high levels of protocol for something that really doesn't need it.
And we don't know whether Aziraphale's attended one of these before. We heard back in the first episode, I think it was, one of the other shopkeepers from the area, probably the chairman of this group, saying, you've offered many, many times to host it at your bookshop, but then you never seem to be open when I come and ask. So I'm not sure whether Aziraphale goes to this meeting or not.
I think he tries to avoid them.
He seems to try and avoid them, but now he's got a plan. So he'll be there with Maggie and Nina. I think that's everything from the episode. Any notes? Anything that we hadn't mentioned that happened in the episode, John?
The only note I have is I do like Aziraphale and Crowley's, after he's done the sleight of hand with the photograph, to effectively destroy Furfur. And, you have Crowley saying, oh, well, I'm just blurring things around the edges. And he says there is something to be said about shades of grey, preferably light grey. And Crowley comes in, well, dark grey for me, like, effectively.
Well, yes.
So I kind of like that. It felt, nicely pointed.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, underlining this change in Aziraphale. Yeah.
And I think the whole underline of this from Crowley as well, it's the underline, it's the full stop, exclamation mark, where he tells Aziraphale, you really are terrible at magic.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah. Should retire the act.
It is just really, it's just so good. I love this episode, I have to say.
Excellent. Well, that's where we are now. What did you think of the episode overall? What did you score it?
For me, I would give this 5 miracle blockers out of 5.
Very good.
Yes, and a free miracle blocker, I guess, thrown in, given you've now reached your 5 loyalty miracle blockers. So I just really, really enjoyed this. I just loved the whole minisode in and around London. Mm-hmm. All sort of linking back to the comment from Shax, about rumours from the 1940s. Mm-hmm. I loved how it connected back to season 1 with these 3, blackmailing Aziraphale for prophetic texts, of which, they were trying to get their hands on the prophecies of Agnes Nutter.
Yes, the nice and accurate prophecies.
The nice and accurate prophecies. So I really enjoyed this whole setup, and I just feel, 2/3 of the way through, it's the pushing you now towards, it's set it up for those last 2 episodes, with, legions of demonic hordes and reams of association meeting protocols.
Yes, sense.
The 2 of them are going to collide wonderfully, I feel.
Yes, I think so.
In this.
I think so. Yes,
that's my hope.
At a monthly meeting of all the shopkeep owners under attack by demons, I presume, outside the bookshop, if it's being hosted there. So, so that'll be interesting.
So, yes, I would give this 5 miracle blockers out of 5.
Excellent. I'm not as high on this one as I have been on other episodes, and I think my only criticism of this episode probably is that it spent such a little amount of time in the present. It was really more about the minisode, but that's only a minor criticism because given that the minisode was written by Jeremy Dyson and Andy Nyman and starred 3 of the main actors from League of Gentlemen, all in a big reunion, I'm a big fan of all of them, so I was really glad to see that. It's almost like they either asked Neil Gaiman or Neil Gaiman asked them, could you do something in the world of Good Omens using Aziraphale and Crowley and some other characters that you played?
Yeah. I think the thing is, I always get excited when these 3 work together.
Absolutely.
Or, as like with Pemberton and Shearsmith on Inside Number 9, as a couplet, in whatever way. I really like it. And I think, coupled to that, then you have, the collaboration with Neil Gaiman, who I love as well. Yeah. And Michael Sheen and David Tennant, who again, are just really nailing these characters. As I say, I felt Michael Sheen's performance here in this episode was just sublime, taking on, the bombastic, grandiose sort of magician, but in the end, it comes off like, a scout theatre night where he, and it's just by sheer force of will and Crowley effectively that he isn't shot in the head whilst there's a miracle blocker going on. But
the theatre owner almost got shot in the head.
Well, that's true. I just loved Michael Sheen here. Both on the stage practicing and the magic shop as well. And for me, Magic Shop was just one of the best bits of TV. Like just that scene I thought was wonderful.
Excellent stuff.
Okay, I think we should crack on to our feedback section. We're recording a little earlier this week, so there may be a few more pieces of feedback that come in with those of you who are maybe watching along with us or just pacing your feedback. But our first bit of feedback comes through Facebook from Dr. Bob Phillips, who says, seeing the burgeoning romance between Aziraphale and Crowley is lovely, as is the range of awful accents Tennant gets to do. The League of Zombie Nazis story in this didn't tickle me the same way the previous have, but I know horror comedy isn't really my thing.
Right.
Was Beelzebub really ignorant of the whereabouts of Gabriel? If so, does it splat the fly in the box theory? Plus, the text message to Nina is not nice, and she needs to get rid of Lindsay. Yes, indeed. Thanks, Dr. Bob, for the feedback. It's interesting. I know what you mean. I think the whole, that whole conversation between Shax and Beelzebub was kind of interesting. As I say, mainly because of Beelzebub commanding Shax. So it may all have been a ploy by Beelzebub anyway, given the fly associated with the empty box. Given that Beelzebub is just that swarm of flies.
Yeah.
So it's interesting, but yeah, you're right. If Beelzebub is ignorant, then that fly in the box theory will be interesting.
See, we don't really, at the moment, we just don't really know what's happening with Gabriel. We knew he turned up. We knew he was carrying a box. The box had a fly inside of it. We know he doesn't have a memory of the past, or at least his mind now can't hold the memories of Gabriel. Yeah. Was it Beelzebub that did that wiped his mind? And is the reason why she doesn't know where he is because of the miracle that Aziraphale and Crowley did to block Gabriel from everybody? So has Beelzebub effectively lost Gabriel and doesn't know
exactly
where he is now because of that? But the theory that we had was that the fly that was in there was monitoring Gabriel on behalf of Beelzebub. I think that was kind of what we were thinking, that's the connection between the two. But potentially that miracle severed the connection between that fly and Beelzebub.
Exactly.
Maybe.
Just don't know yet. We still don't know who the Mason in the grey suit was from last week. Yeah. There is the same words being spoken by Gabriel as to Job and his trials and tribulations that was spoken to Job by God. So, and the whole something is coming. What is it? How bad is it? So, I think the fly in the box theory potentially could go splat. For sure, but it just feels like it's been present. Why have it there? Or is it just to throw us off the scent?
It could be. But I'm guessing, since, as we said, there's no minisodes listed for the last 2 episodes, and everything probably is going to be taking place in present day, that we're going to find out much more about that, what's happening, why Gabriel's there, and what the connection to Beelzebub is.
Exactly. And Dr. Bob, you pick on a point that actually we didn't mention. There is that brief moment where Nina gets a pretty grim text message from Lindsay. So, which is, it's all just putting sort of guilt and really playing psychological games with her. Yeah. It seems really nasty.
Absolutely. I think I saw this in the behind the scenes. Correct me if I'm wrong. Because, I don't mind being wrong, on occasion. But I think I heard the guy who designed the effect for the text message on screen is the same one that came up with the one for Sherlock, which was, really well known for all the text messages appearing on screen in different ways than you saw on other things. So, I think they have him working on board this. It's another, obviously, British production like Sherlock was. So they tasked him with doing that. Something interesting with text messages for Nina, because we saw that back when Nina and Maggie were locked inside the coffee shop, all the text messages appearing when the power came back. So I just thought that was quite an interesting little touch. I'm sure I saw that. I'm sure I read that in an article the other day. Good stuff.
Yeah, good stuff. Thanks, Dr. Bob.
Absolutely. Always great to hear from you, Dr. Bob. If there is any more feedback that comes in between now and when we release the episode, I will, of course, pop it in here before we release the episode. So thanks so much for your thoughts, Dr. Bob. If you do want to send in any of your feedback, we've got 2 episodes left of Good Omens, so you can email us to feedback@tvpodcastindustries.com or pop on over to our Facebook group at facebook.com/groups/tvpodcastindustries.
Yes, you can also send a voicemail through our website at tvpodcastindustries.com.
Yes, absolutely. And remember, we had the voicemail in from Anwen in New Zealand last week, who was halfway through season 1 when she sent in the voicemail. She did give me an update. She's already caught up to us. She thought she'd get caught up to the end of season 2 of Good Omens by the time we finished it, but she's already caught up.
Excellent. Great stuff.
She hopefully seems like she's enjoying it as much as she was season 1. She was very much enjoying the first season, and now halfway through the second season, and is now looking to read the book after finishing when she finishes season 2. So.
Good stuff.
Yeah, I love that.
Well, that's everything from feedback. Thank you for your thoughts, as always, fellow acolytes. Great to hear your views on this. Just to remind all our fellow acolytes that you can, of course, subscribe over on tvpodcastindustries.com on any godly or devilish podcast player of your choice. If you subscribe, please share the podcast as well, because sharing the podcast is, of course, sharing the love. And we're over on patreon.com/TV Podcast Industries, as well as buymeacoffee.com/TVPI if you wish to support us in that way as well. But any support, whatever form it comes, feedback, subscribing, all through those two platforms is very much appreciated, as always.
Absolutely. Once again, a thank you to Jason Kabasi and Podcastica.com. Lots of stuff going over on Podcastica at the moment. They have started their coverage of The White Lotus. Unfortunately, due to the events in Hawaii, they are delayed a little bit with their third episode, as Jason was on holiday in Hawaii. All safe, everybody's all safe and back home now, I believe. Excellent. So good to hear. But check out the podcast over there on podcastica.com on the excellent show, The White Lotus. Also, Daphne and Paik are covering 28 Days Later on Run for Your Life this week.
Very good.
Yeah, I think they've already released it now. I don't know what they're doing.
Love that movie.
This Friday, but a great zombie related movie, which goes quite well. Yeah,
exactly. To me,
it's an infected movie. It's not a zombie movie. It is
an infected movie, and it does, for me, it kind of is it's a blend of zombie infected along with one of my favourite sci-fi authors, John Wyndham, just in terms of that opening scene with Cillian Murphy on the bridge outside the Houses of Parliament in London.
Yes, that's very cool. It's very cool.
Really good stuff.
And you can hear that on Run for Your Lives over at podcastica.com. Thanks so much for joining us. Talk to you again next time.
Yes, we'll be back next time, fellow acolytes, with Good Omens Season 2, Episode 5, the penultimate episode, entitled The Ball. Interesting. But until then, remember, keep watching, keep listening, and of course, keep praying. And of course, as always, remember, fellow acolytes, the apocalypse is coming. So grab your hard hat,
coffee and vodka.